The basics of psychology with Justus August. Once again, let's learn about the foundations of human behavior. Number one, when you talk about human behaviors, we look into what is causing, what is behind those behaviors, and that's a function of psychologists. So they have to make sure they explain what could be the reason for a particular behavior or for a particular person to behave in a certain way. And when we talk about the foundations of human behavior, we mostly focus on the three main things: biological, cognitive, and sociocultural. Biological, it's how we are biologically programmed, and cognitive, it's how we interpret what happens in our environment, and sociocultural, it's how affected by what we are exposed to. Well, can you think, how does biology come into our behaviors? Yes, biology comes into our behaviors because biology is the one that controls or that defines the role of our physical structure, the brain, and the brain processes that are how the central nervous system works. For example, we speak about what we call the structure of the brain. In the structure of the brain, we talk about what we call brain localization of function. What does that mean? That means specific part of the brain has specific role to play, or it's responsible for specific function. And we look at the neurotransmitters, how neurons work, how do they communicate to receive, transfer, interpret information, and then give neurotransmitters comes in. So neurotransmitters are very important into humans' behaviors. Another thing, we talk about hormones. Hormones are chemical substances, or they affect a specific target cell, and those cells, they cause a certain behavior or certain part of the body to behave accordingly. So the hormones, you have heard about hormonal imbalances, you have heard about a lot regarding the hormones. So hormones also plays a role in human behavior. Another thing we talk about is pheromones. Pheromones, we call them the chemical communication among the species of the same type when they are communicating their needs. They can communicate to inform themselves or others that there is danger, or they can communicate that in a certain place there is food, and all those things. Another thing in biological approach, we look into the genetics, the heritability, what we inherit from our parents, what we inherit through our genetic makeup, our DNA, and all those things are discussed in biological approach. So when we talk about biological approach, we need to understand that this is a process which is a continuous, like as we live, since the fertilization of ovum with male sperm all the way till this person dies. The biological process takes place at fertilization and at birth, and during early childhood, and possibly before adulthood. There is a cell expansion, cell multiplications, and cell growth. The cells keeps growing, keeps expanding themselves, keeps multiplying themselves. But when we grow old, do you know what happens to the cells? Some cells start dying off, some cells start being inactive, some cells becomes dormant, they don't work at all. That's why when people get older, some of the functions stops or starts slowing down. It's because of that. And we look into the structure of the brain, how the brain is processing the information, how if the brain can receive more information or can retrieve the previous stored information, localization of function. We look on the neurotransmitters specific, for example, serotonin. Serotonin, it's about excitement, arousal. That's serotonin, it's a neurotransmitter. When we talk about hormones, we can look about adrenaline, we can talk about testosterone, we can talk about oxytocin. Adrenaline, it's for competition, for activeness, a person to be powerful, to work. And when we talk about Testosterone, it's male's hormone, or estrogen for female. It's about competition as well, aggression, empathy, and all those things. When we talk about oxytocin, it's about the trust, the social trust. We call it a love hormone, and it's released when there is physical touches. With physical touches, the oxytocin gets released, and the person can develop trust, can develop love, can develop good feelings about the person. So if oxytocin is not released, it means the person will feel disgusted when someone, or irritated when someone touches them. Wow, can you believe that? Well, when we talk about pheromones, we have like mainly two types of pheromones. It's not important to mention them, but they're there to either to talk about, we talk about how animals or organisms of the same species can communicate. It's very difficult for me to communicate with other species because biologically I'm not programmed. I need to train myself in order to communicate with other species. But when you talk about hereditary or genetics, we talk about what we inherit from our parents and how they influence or they participate into causing our behavior. For example, intelligence, stress, depression can be something hereditable. People can inherit it. Do you want to know about this? Go search about, or you can read about what we call 5-HTT gene. 5-HTT gene, it's a gene that is believed that it plays a role into people developing depression. So the people with the more than one short versions of 5-HTT genes, we call it short arrays, they are likely to develop depression when faced or when they are confronted by life stresses. The people who with more than one long 5-HTT alleles, they are likely to bounce back. They can easily bounce back even when they face life difficulties or stressful life events. That's it from biological approach. We can talk about different research studies. You don't need to know about this in this session. If we have time, we'll come talk about them. Thank you so much. This is Justus August, Basics of Psychology, and from Hatua Therapies.